Welcome to Be Undaunted. This is the podcast that helps you lead stronger, elevate your impact, and live with more energy.
I'm George Dom, former Navy fighter pilot, Blue Angels flight leader, and corporate executive.
And I'm Tara Collingwood, performance dietitian to Olympians, CEOs, and everyday people that are just under pressure. If you're ready to grow, to strengthen your leadership, and to reclaim your energy.
If you want to feel more intentional, more capable, and yes, more undaunted, you're in the right place.
Hello and welcome to Be Undaunted. We are so happy to have you join us today. Hello, George.
Hello, Tara. How are you?
I am fabulous.
I'm glad you're not standing in line at TSA.
I tell you, the things are a mess right now in the world, but here we are talking about being undaunted and trying to make our way in the world, right? We can get through it.
Let's go.
All right. So today we have a very special guest. Carolyn Moor has been transforming personal tragedy into global impact as she founded and leads the Modern Widows Club and the Movement for Widow Care. This is a public health charity at the forefront of widow care equity. Carolyn is building a movement that is reshaping really how society views and supports widowed women. She's a TEDx speaker. She's the author of 4 books, and she is actually my own personal widow mentor. I was widowed 13 years ago, and Carolyn literally held my hand through so many trials and tribulations. And so I am thrilled to have Carolyn here today. Welcome, Carolyn.
I'm so happy to be here, Tara.
All right. So we have to start, of course, at the beginning. Valentine's Day, 2001. You go out to dinner with your husband, Chad, get into a hit and run car crash on the way home, literally holding Chad in your arms as he took his last breath, leaving you a widow at the age of 37, 2 young daughters. Tell us about those first few years.
Well, it's interesting being 26 years into the future and looking back, because I can say I have no memories of the first year. And that is how harrowing a very severe life transition like that happens. You do have some of the trauma memories of flashes of images, but most of the first year, I have very little memories of my daughters. It speaks to the shock that is widowhood. I think for anyone, it doesn't matter if it's sudden or it's expected. It is just this one less breath change of a transition in life. And in the second year, I remember realizing I'm going to have to do this another year. And maybe a year after that, and the anxiety and the realization that I was actually facing real anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I realized that my body couldn't coast, and that I was going to need real help, real professional help. And because I was now the caregiver and the only wage earner and the only provider for my family, and the weight of that was coming down on me very heavy in the second year. And I think for you, and like I did, we first go looking for help for our children, which I was able to find. But when I went looking for help for myself, it was sparse and it was minimal. It was difficult to find. I certainly couldn't find a mentor like I have been to you. And I clearly remember thinking, no one really understands the immense pain that I am trying to figure out how to manage. Like, I had no language for how to even describe what was happening to me. And that, going from a very confident, happy, business owner with my husband and loving being a wife and a mother, to speechless, being rendered voiceless. It's a very impossible, you know what I'm talking about because you've been widowed.
Yeah.
If you have not experienced that, it's very hard for people to understand that that instantaneous transition and the impact it has on you emotionally, physically, spiritually, in all those ways. I had no idea who I was looking at in the mirror.
Mm.
And that's the best way I can explain it. I looked the same on the outside. I was nothing of the same on the inside. And that's what widowhood is, thinking back. And getting to where I am today, it is, I know I'm a survivor. And that's what widowed women are. They are true survivors.
Mm. Wow. What a pleasure to be with you, both of you today, because you both embody the whole concept of being undaunted. Carolyn, so when somebody goes through that, as you just described, it just disrupts identity, direction, and of course, the future that you thought was ahead of you. So can you tell us about how does someone go about rebuilding a sense of direction or purpose without forcing it or without just pretending that you're okay?
Mm-hmm. I think the word undaunting is very important here, because there is so much about widowhood that does intimidate you. It's kind of the opposite of being undaunted. And I think it really just depends. I always try to, and I did this in my own life, sort of take a summary of what I do have. Do you have a close family? Do you have the financial means to be able to get professional support? You have to in the beginning. And if you have a mentor that can walk this journey with you, every widow knows this. You have to do an assessment of what do I have and how can I maximize that support, and then go find what was missing from what I started with. And for myself, I was at a disadvantage when it came to family. I was at a disadvantage. My church family didn't know what to do with me because I was so young, and all the resources were for older ladies. What I did have is I was actually a pediatric nurse in my 20s. And so what I did have is a lot of knowledge about what the impact was going to be on my daughters under the age of 7, and understanding the extreme importance that I get them the support that they need, because they too were experiencing a trauma. And so my primary focus really was on my children, but that's not going to be the case for every widow. Taking that assessment and saying, what do I have and what do I need to find, was just over a span of time. There's no timeline at all. So once I found my daughter's help at a children's grief center here locally in Orlando, then when I left that program, I started looking for my own support. And I did I did realize that I was experiencing PTSD. I did not have really a language for that. I didn't realize it until I started having panic attacks that were interrupting daily life. So if I was driving my children to school and I heard an ambulance or a fire truck, I would completely break down and have to stop the car and put my hands over my ears.
Wow.
Or I'd start shaking. So that, as a solo parent, you must go get the support. And I did go to EMDR, and it was fantastic. But I didn't do that till year 5.
Well, and speaking of, I mean, that was year 5, and then year 10.
Yeah.
10 years after you were widowed, you said, there's got to be something out there. And so you literally just invited 3 women into your living room.
Right.
And those 3 women came, you talked about being widows together, and tell us about how just that first meeting with these 3 women in 2011, now 15 years later, has become a really, thousands of women are helped every year with the Modern Widows Club that you have created.
Right. It's interesting. You wait and you wait and you wait till someone creates something that you want. And then after a decade, I realized it's not, maybe you have to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
And it was much more subtle than that. It really was this realization that I had survived 10 years. I had learned a lot in that amount of time, and that wisdom could be passed down to someone who was in that great time of need in the beginning years, like I wanted. So it was this simple, I can sit, I can listen, I can share, I can give resources. And why would I refuse to do something that I can do? And it really was, these two ladies were very different. One was older with a son, one was younger. And one was professional and one had been a stay-at-home mom. Completely different experiences. But what I found in sitting and talking to women is there are a lot of commonalities that we experience. And there's a lot of injustices that we experience because of the lack of support or the lack of structure and framework that widows genuinely need as they're coming out of a well-established grief support system, right? So 1 to 2 years grief support is well established.
Mm-hmm.
But the transition, the post-traumatic growth transition to rebuilding a new life did not exist. And I had sort of clunk in a clunky way did that for 10 years. And so what I saw happen with these first few ladies was a couple of things. I possessed knowledge that was very unique to the widowhood experience that they needed to hear. We have an odd sense of humor. We have, weird questions to ask about very intimate things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something else. And that was widows tend to know widows because widows get sent our direction. And so there was this universal law that widows know widows. And so it was never was ever going to be just two widows because each of them had a friend and wanted to bring them the next month. And that is just 15 years of growth where widows know widows who continue to bring them into what we have created at Modern Widows Club, which has become a widows health movement specifically for this demographic like us, Tara.
Everybody at some point goes through some significant crisis and loss and so forth. And too often, many people just kind of disappear, right? Sometimes the very people that you expected would be there for you, right? What did you experience that taught you something about what real trust actually looks like and how people reveal themselves under pressure?
I think for widows, there's a couple of things. I think people are intimidated by being able to speak to them. And I also think widows feel a great responsibility and need to educate society in general. So this is two things. Over time, I have learned that in this particular life transition, there is just this, no one knows what to do. And everyone thinks someone else is doing something. And so that's the environment that I see where resentment, distance, a lack of trust gets developed. And what we've done at Modern Widows Club is really work on that. There are women, like we have to earn a woman's trust first by what we say, what we do, following up. If they call our 844 number, we respond. All the ways to build that trust. So trust is a really big issue with widows. They are preyed upon in multiple ways. I was fortunate because I was always a very independent girl, tomboy growing up and a woman in the business world. But what I have seen is a lot of women who sort of trusted their own self, that got maximized in widowhood. And so those women needed to be around other women who did trust themselves to affirm that these decisions you're making are good and you need to go and do this because you won't know if you want to continue or stop it unless you go. And that's the thing about walking into uncertainty. How do you get the courage? Sometimes you borrow it from the affirmation of someone else going, I believe in you and you can do this. And it gives them that ability to get over their fears to be able to then get to the other side, which is the future that is waiting for them. That happens a lot in this widowhood. I just want to share really quickly. We had a woman one time came and she was 80 years old. She had been widowed 3 times. And the majority of the women in the room were younger. And she spoke and said, ladies, I've been married 3 times and I've buried 3 husbands. And each one of them was just what I needed at that stage in my life. And I'd do it again. I want that for all of you to feel that again, but you're going to have to get past your fear. I still remember that conversation in my living room. I'm getting chills.
Yeah.
Because there were ladies in that room that went on and they said, if she can do it, I can do it. And the power of it.
Right. And that's what I think is so incredible about what you have been able to build. I remember the day we met, and it was probably a year and a half after I had been widowed, maybe a year after I had been widowed. And you said, we finally made our way to each other. And I was like, what is she talking about? She said, oh, people had told me about you. They said, you need to meet Tara. She's widowed. And you said, I will meet Tara when it's the time is right. Because a lot of people, and you get it all the time, I get it all the time. The minute someone loses their spouse or, a friend, my friend just lost her husband. Can you help her? And it's like a week after their husband died. And I'm like, yes, but now is not the right time.
No.
Because what you have created is going from grief to growth. And that story that you just said about that woman is exactly what it's about. It's not, there are grief groups, and there are wonderful grief groups all over.
Right.
But it's the step after the grief group is what you created. It's
Correct.
not just women coming and crying over their dead husbands. There's a place for that, but it's where do I go from here? And so tell us the steps, the kind of, how you've created this process to go from grief to growth.
It was a little bit of my nursing background, kind of kicked in, and I realized everything responding to widows was about crisis response. That's what grief support is. It's a crisis response. It's meant to be shorter term, right? What I started to realize as time went on is we need literally comprehensive care. Because, 5 years into my widowhood, I had a house fire and was homeless. Could I have prevented that? No. But I went right back. All the progress I made in 5 years, now I'm financially unstable because I'm having difficulty working. If it had not been for my close friends, my neighbors, I don't know what I would have done. But there's this crisis response that people recognize around widowhood, and they don't see it as comprehensive care. Our research actually shows in Modern Widows Club it takes 5 to 7 years. And I know, Tara, you understand that.
Yes.
You had support in the 5 to 7 years. It took me longer, probably twice as long, because I didn't have support. So what we're seeing today is when we bring in this grief to growth concept into the mindset of widows, is they start seeing a future for themselves. Our research actually shows that widows don't care about their future. They don't care about their health. They aren't eating well. They're not sleeping well. They're barely working. And they're having a hard time caring for parents if they're caregiving or taking care of children. This is our research. These are the top 5 things. And so, we developed this widow empowerment quiz that is an assessment tool. And in 15 minutes, widows can see where they are on this path of what we call hope, heal, grow, lead. And widows come into our organization in different phases. Hope is those women who are newly grieving, like you just mentioned a little bit.
Hanging on by their fingernails.
That's right. Those are the women who will observe us from a distance, read the Facebook page, watch the posts. Is this for real? Are these people genuine? Should I trust them? But then when the majority of women coming to us are in heal and grow. And then an even percentage become ambassadors and leaders like you. And that means that you can come into our organization and stay as long as you want. You can leave, come back. There's many, many options. And the women themselves see that journey. And I always say I've never met a widow who wants to stay in grief. They want somewhere to grow. And this Modern Widows Club is actually where women come to discover who that is, who she is. And she's getting cues from all the women that she's meeting, like you and me.
Wow. It seems that, and you touched on this, that there's a real choice we have between leaning into the pain and avoiding it, right? And, the Stoics have a saying that the challenge is the way. So what message would you have for folks out there that's one thing that someone could do right away in the next 24 hours to begin engaging rather than avoiding?
Are you talking about a widow?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or anybody that has a big loss, but of course, in your case.
I cannot underestimate the power of finding others like you, finding your tribe, what we call it. It exists in the executive world. It exists in Boys and Girls Club. It exists, and it's been proven that resilience is built in the circles of influence that you place yourself into. I know what it's like not to have that with widows. And today, I probably have 100 ladies on speed dial on my phone. Big difference. And the research actually proves that, believe it or not, asking grievers what actually supports them the best, which I tend to believe the actual people who are grieving to tell me the truth, it is actual social support and pets. Our pets, because we can talk without judgment to our pets. When you're in social support, it reduces loneliness, it reduces overwhelm, it reduces isolation. And just that will open a door to learning new things, seeing that new future. And so I cannot underestimate. Right now, widows have the ability to plug into what we have at MWC, whether that's watching a video on our YouTube, reading an article, just saying, these people want the best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And accepting it. A lot of widows are very, their heart shut down to the world as a protective measure. And so that will have to open and soften slightly in order to receive the good that still exists in the world.
So one of the reasons I asked you to be here today with us, Carolyn, is because I really do feel like you are the definition of being undaunted. So not only did you feel pain, seek out a solution for yourself, but then you said, I'm not the only one who's in this situation, and I'm going to actually create an organization. And it started with 3 women, and now it is, thousands, and really even around the world. Tell us a little bit about consulting with different organizations, communities. I know one of the biggest things you do now is advocacy and awareness of the plight of a widow and how to get more resources to help widows around the world.
Mm-hmm. So in 2024, one of the things that we identified is that the advocacy and the awareness and the education and also the research that we needed to collaborate with universities and just many different avenues was sort of 2 different things. So Modern Widows Club are the resources that we've developed with widows from polls, from research that we've done internally. And then the Movement for Widow Care was born in 2024 to sort of inform the programs. But it was the amount of sort of just lack of equity that I saw where widows are not included in certain conversations, whether it's religious or health-wise or in the legal world, financial world. There were so many incidences that I saw that were intersections of the widowhood experience, but no one was there to stand up and be a voice for widows. And so an example I'll give to you is like 50% of Americans have life insurance. One of our biggest sponsors is New York Life Foundation, who focuses on grieving children and families. They are certainly the leading foundation that cares to research this. And, they included us in their grief report this year to talk about those who have gone through bereavement and are still trying to work. And it's very important to make sure that we educate HR departments, because we want to keep widows and people who are in transitions employed. Places of worship, just there's no training. There's not one faith university that has a curriculum on widowhood. They're not teaching anything about the widowed women or men in their places of worship. The financial world, women's financial conferences, the widowed voice isn't recognized. Single, married, divorced, yes, not widowed. So we usually come in, and then of course there's policy change, all kinds of things with tax codes and the state laws and that impact widows. But when you sit and you talk to thousands, tens of thousands of widows, you see patterns. And what we've been able to identify by being blessed with these ladies sharing with us is really identifying an entirely new cause of great significance that impacts, in this country, 11 million widows.
Wow.
And about 300 million worldwide. So, we're talking about women who the average age in this country is 59 for a widow. That is not what most people think of.
No, it is not. Yeah.
We were both younger than that. So a big part of my job with the Movement for Widow Care is dispelling myths and bringing in realities. And that will be a lifelong endeavor for me. And, the word undaunted is like not to be intimidated, not to be discouraged, not to be forced to abandon something, to give up on something because of fear.
Yeah.
All of that is important when you start standing up for not just your own story of what I needed 26 years ago, but with the new widow today and the 2,800 widows married women who will become widowed today.
Wow.
They don't even know that we're standing up here. Every 2 minutes in this country, a woman becomes widowed. So it is happening. And these women deserve to have a seat at the table when it comes to many conversations. And that really is what has been cracked open in our organization is these women need representation. And I'm honored, to have you and thousands of other women who are ambassadors in their own respective areas.
Well, we are honored to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you one last word. But before that, George, I would love to hear your takeaways of our conversation today.
Well, being the father of 2 daughters and so forth, every day I'm learning something new. And this whole conversation has been eye-opening for me because, as you said, Carolyn, so well, I mean, many of us we just don't realize, right? And a couple of the things that you said that really jumped out at me, one was when you find yourself in this situation, and this I think applies to anybody who has a big loss or a big trauma, is that you need to take an assessment and inventory of, okay, where am I? What have I got? What tools do I have? And what are my gaps? And then go ask for help to fill the gaps. The other thing I didn't occur to me is the PTSD that you talked about. I mean, I'm very familiar with that for servicemen and women. But again, to think about how you would be triggered by just hearing a fire truck or an ambulance or whatever was eye-opening. And I loved your comment. I'm stealing it. Your comment that, when you're trying to get going and walk into uncertainty, that sometimes you have to borrow the courage to do that. And I thought that was just beautiful. So thank you so much for being here. And all the wonderful work that you're doing. It's a real honor to have you with us.
Thank you.
Carolyn, you have changed my life in so many ways. And yeah, I just can't even thank you enough for being here and increasing the awareness for others as well about the plight of the widow. So please share with us any last words and also resources. We'll put them in the show notes, of course, but tell us where people can get more information about the Modern Widows Club.
Well, modernwidowsclub.org. And like I tell everyone, every widowhood story starts with a love story. So the easiest way to connect with a widow is really to ask her about her love story. Because that famous saying that I have, widowed women are women of fulfilled marriage vows. Promise made, promise kept, promise honored. She is wanting to honor the love that she received, and she wants to share that with you.
Love that. Love that. And you are on social media with the Modern Widows Club as well as your own personal social media. So I will put links to all of that in our show notes. But Carolyn Moor, you can find her and all of her advocacy. So again, thank you so much. And of course, for all of you out there listening to us at Be Undaunted, you can follow us or subscribe for free, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to right now. Rate and comment. We could use the love.
Amen. Yeah. So until next time, everyone, thanks for being with us today, and let's be undaunted.